Hello, Reese. Are you ready to have this book explained to you by three acolytes of the Bobonomicon?
Listen, my friends.
Mm-hmm.
In the heat of the moment, if I lose my shit, start screaming at you guys,
Right.
for
slurs.
Exactly. Just know that I'm not responsible for that. It's just I was possessed by Bob.
All right, you get a free pass on all the
Thank you.
slurs.
God, no, this is going to be a lost episode. This is going to be like this is going to be like The Ring. It's going to be the podcast equivalent of The Ring. Like, people listen to this episode and then like their phone rings and they pick it up and it's Bob Chipman and he tells them that they did a no growth.
If we have two VGATWTOE movie Bob lost episodes, that would be amazing.
All right. I claim the position of master of ceremonies for this episode just because I feel it's I'm mostly to
Your
blame.
fault, yeah.
It's my fault.
By all means.
All right, the update from that. Sorry, y'all. I've been working 50+ hour weeks making beer, reading Robert's book during work. Cooldown made my day like 90% more stressful. I did suffer with you reading the book written like a Reddit post. Too tired to hoot and holler.
Good night, sweet prince.
Reading the book took everything out of him. He's never been the same.
This is the first confirmed casualty from this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Video Games Are the Worst Thing on Earth, Book Club Edition. Yes, that's right, folks. We've finally gone and done it. We have read through almost all 200 pages of Robert Chipman's masterpiece, Super Mario Bros. 3 Brick by Brick by Bob Chipman. What inspired this? I'm not entirely sure. I think it was probably something to do with Bob Chipman saying that an entire group of people needs to die. That's usually what he gets in trouble for. But anyway, I'm Alton, your host, and with me as always is Reese.
Hello.
And Kay.
I will never be free from the darkness.
And joining us once again to discuss his local cryptid is Conqy.
It's me. I'm here again. Least requested host on Patreon ever. I've seen all the comments. I've read all the posts, and fuck you. I'm back despite your best efforts.
That's right.
Well, you're the only one among us who has actually met Bob Chipman in the flesh.
Yeah. He is kind of like a local cryptid. I've seen him like 5 or 6 times just wandering around the city, like in a fugue state.
I actually didn't know that about you. I didn't know we were having an expert on with field experience.
Yeah, no, I have a photo of me with him at the Women's March from 2016.
Oh my god.
Conqy is our Boston correspondent, so all movie Bob and Elizabeth Warren related episodes, we have to have him on.
Yeah, well, I have a personal vendetta against Bob for like very different reasons, like the eugenics shit. Like, that's totally fine with me. I agree, nuke middle America. But the problem with me is that he claims to be from Boston when he is in fact from Revere, which is not Boston, the greatest crime that anyone can possibly commit. So
this is big. This is a big lore development.
Stay the fuck on the blue line, Bob.
We had like multiple other people reading this book for our book club, but unfortunately they couldn't make it, so R.I.P.
Because the book killed them.
Let me share my perspective, where I've had to step away from online a bit recently. And so, every day or two, I just open up Discord to see what's happening. And I see our local Movie Bob chat has like 700,000 posts. And it's just like, oh, what the fuck is happening? And it's gone from whatever stupid thing he posted recently, which I don't even remember now.
No, me neither.
To Alton getting everybody psyched up to read, what's this book called? Brick by Brick?
Super Mario Brothers 3 Brick by Brick. The levels, the enemies, the history, the greatest game ever made.
And let me tell you, that name That name, it's an accurate depiction of what would follow.
Exactly.
Yeah, just like the greatest game ever made, this is the greatest book ever written.
Yeah,
Oh.
exactly.
So, like I said, I've stepped away for a couple weeks because I'm playing through an entire Ubisoft open world game, and that's taking hundreds of hours of my time. And so I have not read this at all.
I got Reese in here to get some fresh perspective because, like, obviously, our reaction to the things in the book will not be as intense as, like, our first time reading through it, is my thinking. So we've got Reese here, who is tabula rasa, a blank slate for which we can write upon the eldritch ruins of Bob Chipman's life in a way that I think will be very, very interesting.
I am a turmoil of emotions right now. I have no idea what's going to happen, and I might get IRL upset. We'll see.
All right, so before we get started, I just want to get what was everyone's general opinion of the book. How did you guys like it?
I will read the very first note in my Google document
right.
called Thoughts on Bibb's Book. The very first thing I wrote was, I hate this.
All right. I think that's pretty, unless you have something else to add, I think that's a pretty good summary. Kay, what did you think?
This book for me embodies everything that is wrong with media criticism, I guess. There is a bit, I don't remember exactly where, it probably like in the introduction, where he refers to the book to follow as a deep analysis of the game.
Oh yeah.
And it's not. It's like a very long, drawn out description of it. And
yes,
if you look at like movie and game story analysis in quotes on like YouTube and shit, that's what like 90% of it is. It's just like, I'm just gonna tell you the things that happened.
Right.
And I don't know, I feel like Movie Bob has been a trendsetter in a lot of ways we haven't given him credit for, like really bad media analysis.
Right. So to give people an idea of how this book is structured, basically Bob Chipman, he has like the 4 parts. He has like a brief history of Mario, which is part 1. Then he has part 2, My Life in the Mushroom Kingdom, which is sort of like a autobiographical. And then part 3 is like a description of the game, which is very weird, kind of. That's the place where I have like the least amount of bookmarks in, just because it's very dry. It's just describing what the game is, which he's already done like 3 times by that point. And then part 4, which is a fucking play-by-play description of everything, of him playing through every single level and what he does and like what mistakes he makes, and like jumping on a Goomba, grabbing power-ups, going to such and such world, using such and such item. It is honestly the most tedious experience I think one could possibly have. And basically, I don't know about you guys, but I completely skipped over all of those parts, except
Oh yeah.
this is very helpful in that he breaks out like personal diary logs in like a different colored block, and some of those are really funny. So to give you my impression of the book, I loved it. This was fantastic. This was one of the most unintentionally hilarious things I think I've ever read, and I'd like to thank another podcast called the Bad Book Club, which is kind of where I got the idea to do this episode. But we're gonna have very different things to say about this book, because unlike them, I don't give a shit about the typos. I don't really give a shit about the bad editing. In fact, to me, if you read this book, that's what you want to read it for. Because
Yeah.
Bob Chipman has a way with words, let's say, and we'll get into it. Let's get things kicked off with page 3, the dedications.
Okay.
You have any notes for page 3? I definitely do.
Yeah.
I suspect that we have a similar comment to make on this one, yeah.
To read through it, this book is dedicated to Shigeru Miyamoto for saving my life more times than he knows. Christopher and
Wow.
Catherine Chipman for always being there. Peter and Patricia Chipman for everything. And in loving memory of Evangeline Chipman for setting an example. So, does anyone notice something wrong with, like, the order of those dedications?
Yeah, so Movie Bob is a man with his priorities in order. So the guy who made a video game he likes where you jump on cartoon turtles, that goes not just before his, like, I'm assuming parents, but before his deceased grandmother. That guy goes at the top, baby. Grandma, you go at the end.
And, like, his grandma gets for setting an example, and Shigeru Miyamoto gets for saving my life more times than he knows. I mean, we'll get into this, but I think, like, my primary thesis statement on this book, and what I think that it's actually saying, more so than what he thinks he's trying to say, is that Bob Chipman is a man with some very unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Oh yeah, that features heavily in my notes.
Exactly.
I'm fixated on the saved my life more times than he will know. Like, I know, but this is very nitpicky. But
Right.
it's just like he's a celebrity, you know, that lives far away. Why? I don't understand why that is something you would even, underline in your thing. Of course, he doesn't know. He's a stranger. I don't know. Like, it's such a weird parasocial, like, thing to start with. I don't know. Very, very sad.
Bob is 100% a person who uses Japanese honorifics. Like, he calls him, like, Miyamoto-san to his friends.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
So what were you going to say, Conqy? Something mean.
I was going to say Shigeru Miyamoto walked so Lindsay Ellis could run.
Oh my god.
Oh god.
That.
I'll keep that
in. All right, so page 9, the introduction. Right off the bat, we're getting into some very questionable writing territory, because the very first 2 sentences of this book are, why write a book about Super Mario Brothers 3? I'm going to
question.
I'm going to assume.
People are always asking me this. I'm walking down the street, people are coming up to me and just asking me, hey, Conqy, why write a book about Super Mario Brothers 3? I'm like, God, I wish someone would answer this. I just wish I knew.
I'm going to assume somebody is asking that question. I am, and I'm the one writing the damn thing.
Oh, this doesn't bode well.
No, right off the bat, you should not start your book with, why am I writing this?
Yeah, I feel like he thinks he's being, like, kind of charming and self deprecating, that's the word. But no, it just comes off like he's kind of confused and doesn't know why he's doing this.
Exactly.
What did I do on my summer vacation? Well, what didn't I do on my summer vacation?
This introduction is the worst thing in this whole fucking book. Like, this is about the only part that actually made me angry reading it. So, he starts off by going, why am I writing this book? I don't know why I'm writing this book, and I'm the one writing it. Please tell me why I'm writing this book. And I'm like, Bob, I don't fucking know.
This is your
If
book?
you know why Bob Chipman is writing this book, write it in a postcard to Bob Chipman, 123 Providence Lane, Revere, Massachusetts.
Feedback from psychologists, especially welcome.
Okay, so then he goes on to be like, okay, Mario's really iconic. And he's just like, it's like a character entrenched in the minds of Generation X beyond this Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny. Video games were the rock and roll of my generation, an art form that
Rock and roll was the rock and roll of your generation.
An art form that came into being and grew in tandem with our own lives, embraced by us to the confusion and exasperation of our parents. And though he wasn't the first icon of the form, Mario was figured at the forefront. Our Elvis, or if you prefer, our Beatles, which probably makes Pac-Man Chuck Berry in this analogy. And what I want to know is, who is the Mark David Chapman of video games?
Me.
you shot Mario after reading Catcher in the Rye?
I will be shooting Mario after this podcast, after this recording.
Yeah,
this is the Catcher in the Rye of video game.
Of gaming. Yeah, 100%.
This that whole sentence like sets a tone though that goes throughout the rest of the book, which is like Bob Chipman comparing Mario to like world historic events where he just like can't help but be like, like Mario was just like D-Day. It has the same cultural impact. It's just as important.
No,
people remember it just as fondly.
Spoilers, that's later on. We'll get into that. That's going to be so fucking funny.
I really love him being like, why write a book about Super Mario Brothers 3? Why do an analysis? And then just like the next sentence being the absolute worst analysis and like just super surface level. It's being like, oh, video games are like Elvis.
Yeah.
Thank you for reading.
It gets worse. It gets worse in the next sentence. In the next sentence, he's like, in any case, if this were to be a book of history or pop iconography, surely it would be more comprehensive and sensible to cover the full breadth of Mario's career. And it's like, then why not? Why didn't you do that? Why did you make a Let's Play in book form? All right. And then later on in the page, he calls Shigeru Miyamoto the iconoclastic creator of Mario. I don't think he knows what iconoclastic means.
No, there's no way. He thinks it means iconic, right?
Right. But that means like you're solo, you're like a rebel.
Yeah, it's specifically about like the refuting and even destroying icons. This would be if he was trying to kill Mario, maybe.
Did I lose you guys, or are we just in stunned silence here? Oh, I think I'm back.
Conqy, can you hear us?
Are you back?
Yeah, I can hear. Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
All right, good.
All right,
thank goodness we can resume.
Let's see. Where were we? Oh, he called Shigeru Miyamoto iconoclastic, and we all sat in stunned silence for what seemed like hours.
Oh, I was saying that it's funny because I think it means the opposite of what he wants to say, right? Because an iconoclast is in opposition to icons, like Mario, which we've established is the great sort of image of our entire culture.
The Moloch of video games.
Yeah.
All right. And then even more dithering on what the fucking point of this stupid book is like, where's the import? Where's the story? What's the big deal? Assuming I was able to gather myself after receiving that withering barrage of queries all at once, I might offer that this book isn't precisely a book of history, though it will certainly contain its fair share, but rather a book primarily of video game criticism, which is a lie. A complete fucking lie. There is no video game there is barely any, right? So there may be a little bit, but like the majority of it is the history of Mario and then a Let's Play.
It's kind of like what Kay said earlier in the beginning. Like the closest thing this book actually gets to criticism is just sort of whining about things in the game that annoyed him, like, oh, I had the Tanuki suit and then I got eaten by a piranha plant and I lost it and I was really upset, and so I opened another beer and I resumed playing. And that's it. Like this is the level of criticism that you will find in this book.
All right, so I want to read to you one of my notes. This is one of the most masturbatory paragraphs I have ever read. All right, let me read it. Why start with Super Mario Bros. 3 then? It's not exactly crying out for attention. It's one of the best-selling games in the series, and of all time. Already enshrined as an accepted, unassailable classic. Do you intend to challenge that status? Reveal the game as overrated, perhaps? No. Then, again, why? New Super Mario Bros. Wii is more recent. Super Mario Sunshine is more intriguingly flawed of the series. Super Mario Bros. And Donkey Kong are more historically significant. Super Mario Bros. 2 has the most interesting backstory. What, if anything, are you looking to tell us here? Why should we be reading this?
That's a great question. Why the fuck should we be reading this?
When there are so many tomes of self-help, political fire-breathing, and 12-volume epics of glimmering vampire bow huntresses attending wizard school just a bookshelf or a swipe across the touchpad, as it were, away. To be honest, even I didn't start with the intent to write a book about Super Mario Bros. 3, The format of this project took shape before the subject came into focus for me. You see, at least to my knowledge, at the time of writing, there isn't another book exactly like this one.
That's
and
for fucking sure.
I hope that there hasn't been since. So he just won't get to the fucking point. In fact, he keeps presenting arguments against why this anus pimple of a book should even exist.
And he's convincing me that it shouldn't.
Exactly. He spends the whole fucking introduction of the book telling you what a terrible idea this book is.
I wrote in my notes here, did Bob think this was going to be required reading in game design schools? Because that's how he's writing this. He's writing this
God.
like he's writing this like this is going to be like, you know, a fundamental text for like game designers everywhere. They're going to read this and they're going to be like, damn, no one ever looked at Mario Brothers 3 like this guy.
It's maddening to me because it's clearly he's writing for an audience of one here. But it would be so easy to just simply say, I'm writing this book about Super Mario Brothers 3 because I love it and I'm going to use a personal lens because that's the only lens that I have, and just do it in 3 sentences, and it's a better pitch for a book, even as poorly written as it is. Because at the very least, like, you can wrap your head around that. But what it sounds to me like this book is a mystery.
Yeah.
The mystery is figuring out Bob's little noggin as you go through whatever's being written down.
Exactly.
Which I don't know and will know, unfortunately.
Honestly, that is to me the only good thing about this book, was getting more insight into the unique mind of the creator of the Brainland.
Yeah, it's bleak, man.
It is bleak, but also hilarious.
That's true.
When it comes to Bob Chipman, I think I should give like a little bit of context for people who just started listening to the podcast for some reason.
Great point to jump in.
You picked a hell of a one to get started with.
Folks, if this is your first episode, log off, go outside, kiss your wife, do anything else.
But for people who don't know, we have been obsessed with Bob Chipman for a very, very long time. I don't know what it is about Bob, but he is like very easy to get obsessed about, because he just posts like these incredibly out of touch things that are so poorly worded that's just like, you cannot conceive of why he thought writing that was a good idea. And this book is like an extended version of that.
I mean, the thing is, too, is that we have to realize is that we are dipping our toes into pretty well-worn territory. I would say Bob is maybe the most trolled person on the internet and the most troll focus. And even with all of that, we still feel we have something unique to say because it's so mind-blowing every time we encounter something with Bob.
I feel compelled. I feel compelled to do it.
to give an example of some actual movie Bob criticism about Mario Brothers, in the first video game Overthinker, he creates a video essay with the thesis that there is not a problem with sexism in video games because Princess Peach exists.
Oh,
and
fuck yeah. Give me that.
Take that, Anita Sarkeesian.
So I just wanted to share that and to let you know where I'm coming from anyway, hearing this stuff coming.
Yeah, so we should probably move things along.
Yeah.
Here's another thing. The intro is going to take a while. I'm sorry, guys. But he gets into like reviews, video game criticism. It's just like boring. But here's something that's interesting. Video reviews, often but not always comedic in nature, became the rage with the dawn of high-speed streaming, making unlikely superstars of folks like Ben Yahtzee Crawshaw of Zero Punctuation and James Ralph, aka the Angry Video Game Nerd. And what I wanted to point out here is that this reminds me of this is like an old filmmaking adage that they reference on Red Letter Media all the time, and that is, don't remind people of better movies inside your crappy B movie. And I think that when I read this, I was like, please God, don't remind me that I could be watching videos from anyone else instead of reading this. Okay, so page 11. And this is where I came to a dark realization about what Bob Chipman was trying to do with this book. I'm inclined to note that the one type of critical attention gaming appears to be most, though not wholly, deficient of is analysis. In particular, deep analysis. Specifically, in film writing, there is such a thing as the shot-by-shot analysis. Why didn't this exist for video games? And if I couldn't find such a book, why not write it myself? He is making he is making a Mahler video in book form. That's what
this is. The value of a shot by shot is that the movie is a consistent thing that you can deconstruct. Playing through a video game moment by moment is entirely personal, which is why people don't do it, because your playthrough of Super Mario Brothers 3 is entirely different. You used a warp whistle. It's a whole different context.
So narcissistic that you can't even conceive of the idea that people wouldn't want to hear about your special personal journey through fucking Super Mario 3.
This is like, and it's not even like deep analysis. Sounds like it's just like explaining. It's like one time when I was working at the video store, I had somebody who just like, as like a conversational thing, told me a Law and Order episode that he saw, like in It Always Sunny in Philadelphia, like Charlie does it, and that's what I'm having to experience right now, absorbing Bob's thoughts. Sorry, continue.
No, that's entirely accurate. And he's trying to do a shot by shot here with no visual aids whatsoever. It's entirely text. So it's just like, I went left and then I went up and then I saw a cloud and I jumped on the cloud and the cloud gave me a coin and I picked up the coin. And it's like devoid of any of the context.
Awful. There are such a thing as text-based Let's Plays. Famously, there's a Let's Play of Dwarf Fortress called Boat Murdered, which honestly went kind of viral in spreading like the popularity of Dwarf Fortress. So it's not unheard of to do something like this, but even in those Let's Plays, they gave you visual aids to try and show you what was happening, even in something like Dwarf Fortress, which is nothing but ASCII characters.
Yeah.
Well, that's because the text-based Let's Plays, they're just entertainment, right? They tell a little story from the perspective of whatever's happening. There's not like, well, I'm going to tell you the story of boat murder by deeply doing analysis of Dwarf Fortress at the same time. And it's just like, oh, wow, no one's reading my text-based Let's Play. This is dull.
I will say that none of them did like and then I ran over here, and then I got the health pickup. The thing is that Bob, what I've noticed from Bob's reading is that he is competent at putting words on paper, but he is a bad writer because he has zero filter as to what is actually entertaining.
Oh, I was going to say this entire thing reads like a high school student padding out an essay.
Correct.
We're only in the introduction, and it's not a long book, so that this is not a good sign.
No, it's not.
We're going to be here for 10 years.
And I will be. We will sit down here and do the whole fucking book because I have things to say. I have fucking things to say.
Let's
clear your schedules.
Let's move on then.
All right. So here's him pontificating about how he picked Super Mario 3. All right. This is after he basically discusses how he wants to make a Mahler video in book form. It would have to be an older game, for one, not so much out of nostalgia or sentiment, but because an older game would have its stature already secured. Preferably, it should be a popular game, one that a lot of people would have played or at least know of. A work that has affected the culture in a big, visible way simply offers more to write about. It should have a certain degree of variety, if for no other reason than to keep me consistently engaged so that boredom doesn't inappropriately color the analysis. Which I've added a note, What a coincidence.
Which game to pick for my book? How shall I decide? What criteria? Ooh, the suspense. We've seen the cover. We know which game you picked. We don't fucking care.
This is one of my notes I wrote when I was fucking mad as hell that I had to read this. This dumb fuck took 4 pages to convey the single idea of why the book is about Super Mario Brothers 3. 4 fucking pages.
Yeah. Again, it's not a long book, but everything feels like it goes on way longer than it has to. It's crazy.
Well, that's because Bob has no object permanence, and we'll get into this later, but like Bob repeats himself like dozens and dozens of times.
He does. It's so fucking annoying.
I'll spoil this now just for an example, but like every single time he mentions the concept of Nintendo Power, he puts in parentheses, which I have a framed copy of over my bed. Like he has a framed copy of the first issue of Nintendo Power, and every single time Nintendo Power gets mentioned, which is quite a few times, he has to remind you, by the way, I have a framed copy.
The worst thing about this is every time he brings up the fucking Tanuki suit, he's like, oh, by the way, did you know that the Tanuki is a fucking animal in Japan that looks like a raccoon but actually isn't? I love the Tanuki suit.
Yo, did you know Super Mario Bros. 2 was originally Doki Doki Panic? Not many people know this.
Oh my god.
This like half of this book is that scene from Scott Pilgrim versus the World where like Scott goes up to Ramona and is like, hey, did you know that Pac-Man used to be called Puck-Man, but they were afraid that people would scratch out the P and turn it into an F. Pretty interesting, right? Like that's this whole fucking book.
Yeah, he repeats himself in some weird ways. Another fun one is that at 3 separate points, he describes an event as the beginning of the end in those exact words. Oh my god,
I had that exact same note.
Yeah.
It's just like he keeps, like, I guess we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but he keeps fucking saying, this is the beginning of the end for Mario, and it's always something different. It's just like, what the fuck?
And it's never anything that matters.
No, it never affects Mario in the least bit. In fact, it just gets more popular. And it's just like, the apocalyptic writing about Mario in like the 80s is something I really want to get into because it is fucking. I'm really glad that Reese is here, and I'm assuming, Reese, you actually lived through this era.
I did. I perhaps was not paying as close of attention to the history of Mario as Bob was at the time, but
right. But like Bob Chipman is fucking obsessed with other people liking the same things as him.
Yeah.
It is like if everyone on the planet isn't as invested as he is in fucking Mario or whatever else fucking shit he likes, he panics about it. It's like he's so insecure about just liking something that he needs the validation of having the entire pop culture obsessed with the same thing he is. And it's just like, it doesn't work like that. Pop culture's always changing and shifting, and like it's like a flavor of the month, basically.
Yeah.
In a book about the most broadly popular video game of all time.
Yeah.
It seems like
it's insane. We'll get into it. He has a very interesting, specifically when he talks about the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh my god!
Fuck.
Oh yeah!
Oh god!
I'm so excited for that part. Let's get through this.
Okay, let's get going.
All right, page 14. This is part 1, brief history of Mario. I just want to read this because it's a very bad sentence. By now, the legend of Mario's creation is an old hat to fans, but those who didn't grow up marinating in the game culture stew would likely be surprised.
I don't want to marinate in Bob's game culture stew.
Would be surprised at the utilitarian simplicity of his origins. And again, he goes on to basically describe how, by the way, did you know that they designed Mario because of the limitations of the hardware? And it's like, yes,
damn, dude.
Everyone fucking knows that, Bob.
Like I said, that's all this book is like him pointing out things that are just obvious to anyone who's ever played a video game, being like, damn, not many people know this. Like, yo, did you know Mario used to be Doki Doki Panic? Like it's all this fucking shit.
Yeah, we're in chapter 1 now, or sorry, part 1.
Yeah, he doesn't have chapters, he has parts.
Yeah. And this whole I'm gonna call it chapter, fuck him. This whole chapter it's just a wiki entry for Mario. Like go and read like the history section or the origin section on
Okay,
Mario's
you can
Wikipedia
say
page.
that it's a wiki entry for Mario, but does the Wikipedia page have something like this? Quote, Miyamoto is a living legend, the starry-eyed iconoclast of the video game industry, spoken of by other designers less like a contemporary and more like a mysterious sorcerer who deigns to walk among mortals.
God.
Did he call him an iconoclast again? Like it's been like
And the
4 pages.
fucking mysterious sorcerer who deigns to walk among mortals.
So he just thinks that iconoclast means, he just read the icon part of iconoclast and it was like, the word means icon.
Oh.
Yeah, definitely. Also, he made a game about like a plumber jumping on turtle men. Let's maybe go easy on it here.
Well, I mean, is it explained why he is so special, or is it just like Miyamoto? We all know he's special, right?
He's special because he made Mario. That's it. That's why he's
Yeah.
special.
The
Like,
connection
He's
there, I
special
think, is
because
taken as
he
a
made
given.
it cool to be racist against Italians again.
Exactly. It's so fucking bad that it's amazing. Like, like it's a Wikipedia call Miyamoto, like say that Miyamoto is like a mysterious sorcerer who deigns to walk among mortals. No, it doesn't, and you would need a citation for that. So
It's like an unmoderated Wikipedia article.
exactly.
So a good Wikipedia article.
Yeah. Like the Silent Hill editor who changed everything to be about circumcision. It's like that kind of Wikipedia article.
Yeah. Except it's all about how Miyamoto is a wonderful, beautiful man, and I want him to be my dad.
Exactly.
Also, he saved my
We
life.
should read the Silent Hill circumcision guy's book when it comes out.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let me give you an example. Let me just read something, and then I have another note. So, simple and arch though it may have been, this would be the first time that a game had tried to engage players through narrative and emotion rather than strictly through competition. So they called him Jumpman at first, but he soon got a new nickname based on his apparent similarity to one Mario Segal, a colorful real estate mogul who was Nintendo of America's warehouse manager at the time. And so the reason why I read these two sentences, even though they're not really that funny, is that I found this a million times more interesting than what he was fucking trying, what he actually fucking wrote about later. So earlier he says that it would be a better idea to do a history of the character, and I have to say he was 1,000% correct. This is much more interesting than the shit he writes in like part 4.
Yeah.
And then page 16, I only have one note. This motherfucker called the NES the golden age of video games. I like the SNES and like the 16-bit era. Maybe I'm just biased because like I'm an entitled millennial, and I look at NES games and I'm like every single one of these except for Mario looks like it sucked ass.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Can we get some
However,
commentary
if
from Reese?
Bob ever comes upon this is what's going to set him off. That statement right there.
I mean, it had a boom. It was a big boom at the time. And if you were a child during that boom, it was before and after the NES for sure. And I'm sure, it was a special time for me. I'm sure it was a very special time for Bob.
It just seems weird to me to say that an era in which I would argue like pretty much all the good NES games were first-party Nintendo titles. I'm sure there were like a few others, but like you try and go back and play like an NES game now, and like some of them just don't even work. I mean, that's the entire fucking premise of the Angry Video Game Nerd, is that there were a ton of shitty NES games.
Yeah.
But it's like that. But the cultural shift away from like it's only Pac-Man in arcades to becoming more like involved in everyday life in a very kind of like broad, like industrial social way. So there's no critical analysis from Bob. He was just like, this was a big moment in games and it was never the same again. So of course it was the golden age. From someone else, I might be more forgiving. From Bob, I have no forgiveness.
Like maybe if they argued that it was because this when sort of gaming was brought into the household then.
Yeah, I mean, as a toy.
There was the Atari before that. Like gaming had already been in the household even before the NES. This was just like the next thing that kind of broke through after the video game crash. It's not like the concept of like a home console was like revolutionary. It was just like an Atari,
you're right.
but with more power.
Yeah, Nintendo managed to bring it back by having like stricter quality control on the titles they released. And even then, like a good 80% of NES games were hot ass.
I want to take this time to shout out one particular game I've been playing with my brother-in-law recently, Guerrilla War, if you've ever played it, in which you, I'm not joking, imagine Metal Slug, but you're playing as Fidel Castro and Che Guevara and liberating Cuba. That's the actual plot of Guerrilla War. It's a great
I've heard of that. Fuck yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember that.
There was like a whitewashed version for a Western release, right?
Yeah, where you're just like unseating a king, whereas in the Japanese release, it's literally the Batistas. It's
Hell
great.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Owns.
All right, so I don't have any more notes until page 22. Does anyone have anything?
Oh, I just wanted to highlight real quick. There are like subheadings in the chapter, and on page 18, I just wanted to highlight that one of the subheadings is "Life in Wartime." And that's really indicative of how he's going to be talking about Mario going forward.
My only note in here is Bob describes his life in terms of pre and post NES, like some sort of monumental earth-shattering event like 9/11. And I just have to say that I also agree that Bob getting an NES was a lot like 9/11.
No, that's not till later. That's not till page... That's not till... Spoilers, that's in page 33.
Oh yeah.
So my only note on page 22 is Bob cooms himself about Mario games, which I can maybe I can read through. It's not honestly that interesting. It's mostly just him being like, "Oh my God, as of writing, Nintendo is preparing to launch the Wii U, a successor to the console, to the original Wii. One of the prime games already slated to be among the premier titles. The Super Mario Brothers U. The console will officially kick off the generation of home." If this had been written after Mario Odyssey, he would have just fucking coomed himself about it so hard.
Movie Bob padding out his book by just copy pasting E3 press releases.
All right, here's what I wanted to read out to you guys. The console that will officially kick off the next generation of home gaming will have as its first big showcase a Mario game executed in the classic Mario style. After all these years, he still looms that large. Impressive, considering how humbly he began. Incredible, considering how humbly I came to meet him. Ellipses.
In regards to this whole section where he's like describing like the console war between like Sega and Nintendo, and like I just have this note, which is this book is about the last time Bob was ever happy.
Yeah.
Oh my. Yeah.
Let's see. Where's the next note? Page 26. Mario and I were born, quote unquote, the same year.
Okay.
1981. I'm about 5.5 months older.
So we're getting into chapter 2 now, which is things are going to get beautiful and heated here, and this is where we get a terrifying look into Bob's psyche, but also it's crazy how much this chapter is about him. Like, I wasn't expecting it coming in, how autobiographical this would be, but like we're about to learn a lot about this man.
Part 2 is the most interesting part of the entire book. If you could you could cut out part 1 and you could cut out part 3 and just read part 2, and I think you might actually find it interesting. As long as you've got the right frame of mind to read it, which is this is incredibly funny.
Dark.
Yeah. So my first note is on page 27. He talks about his friend the first time he saw an NES. He was captivated immediately. I had never seen a video game, at home or otherwise, look like this instead of the usual black background populated by conflicting neon shapes. Here was a bright blue sky with puffy white clouds over rich brown earth and green bushes. The creatures were identifiable with eyes and feet and movement. The bricks looked like bricks, the castles looked like castles, and there was Mario, chubby, clad in unassuming overalls and his preposterous mustache, looking for all the world like no hero of anything else I'd ever seen.
I'd never been so horny in my entire life.
Yeah, and so then he talks about how he tried to convince his parents to get the game, and this is something I noted in that this is my first bit of evidence that Bob Chipman is not from the Brainland. Quote,
Ooh.
well, I was not the easiest child in the world to be raising at the time. I was, quote, bad at school. Mainly, I acted out in class, sassed my teachers, zoned out into daydreams, and turned in a lot of poor work. I wasn't, quote, good at much of anything at school related other than drawing and creative writing. So it wasn't as though I was in for some kind of attaboy reward that the NES would fill. So
what's up, Bob? Are you getting in your own eugenics chamber or what?
This I have a note later on in one of the diary entries. Bob literally apologizes for drinking a PBR. Like, it's like, I popped a PBR. I know, sorry. And it's like, this, like, he's from Revere. Revere's like a working class neighborhood, right? Like, but he wants to be seen as a coastal elite. He wants to be seen as, like, you know, like one of the blue check elites who look down on like all the dipshit rubes. But he can't square the fact that he's from this like working class background. And so there's like a lot of like self-hatred that goes on there, I feel like. And I think that that's what drives a lot of his neuroses.
yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, just listen to him. Like, you can hear when you hear him talk, like, this guy's not fucking bourgeois.
I want a slightly more robust picture beyond just the notes of chapter 2. Is he just like, in the beginning, Bob was born, and so was Mario? Is he like just telling us the story of his childhood?
Yeah, I mean, basically.
Yeah, you know, in the beginning was the Mario, and then there was the Bob and the face of Miyamoto moved across the waters, and he separated the light from dark and created day and night. Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting a big look into his childhood. So he's telling us about... Yeah, he's telling us about the creation myth, and then equally important, he's telling us about sort of how he did in school, but he's, for the most part, connecting it all to Nintendo and to Mario in some way.
Is Bob a troubled... Does he have a troubled home, or is he just like, I was bad at school? And
No,
Mario
he has a
was
normal home. He has like 2 loving parents that care for him. He's fine.
He has a normal home, but this is a troubled kid. All right.
He's apparently on very good terms with like his brother, who I found out as a mechanical engineer, which is distressing to me.
He's one of your peers.
As a fellow STEM lord.
That was the guy who tried to get Jack Allison fired from his own Twitch show.
Wait,
Really?
Oh my god.
You're kidding.
Yeah, they were talking shit about him on Struggle Session, and Bob Chipman's brother emailed Jack Allison's like the contact he had on his Twitter page or whatever, and Jack Allison for like a day like pretended that he had been fired because of
I remember that.
brother.
Holy shit.
Oh my god.
Oh my
That
god.
That rules.
And then they tried to be like, oh, I can't believe someone would be so dishonest to pretend they were fired.
Oh my god. So I guess to answer Reese's question and to give the audience a more thorough overview of what's going on in this chapter, he's still talking about like the history of Mario games, sort of like the arcade games, and how that Donkey Kong machine had like exploded in popularity. You remember he's talking what?
Just I'm laughing at the idea of like Bob doing a history of Mario, and he's just like Mario 1981. Bob, I was born. Like,
Yeah,
that's a bullet point on the history.
It's like how it relates to him specifically. So he's talking about his childhood. He's saying how he remembers Mr. Rogers demonstrating how the arcade cabinets worked, and then he's like talking about the fucking Donkey Kong cartoon show. He talks about like home gaming, and this is like him talking about what he was into when he was growing up. He was like, yeah, the marketing blitz of the Nintendo Entertainment System didn't really intrigue me. Advertisers hadn't really figured out how to translate the fun of game playing through commercials yet. Early NES ads focused on the system's more explicitly toy-like features like ROB, or Rob, that toy robot ostensibly served as a second player in some games, but in reality was Nintendo's bid to make toy stores feel more at ease stocking their products, and the Zapper light gun. Well, I already had toy robots. Optimus Prime was much cooler than Rob, and I had seen other toys purporting to interface with TVs that didn't look like that much fun to me. So this is where he gets into his autobiographical stage. So he's talking about his childhood. As I said, he talks about the first time he saw an NES and creamed himself at his friend's house. And then he says, before I watched him play gladly, what seemed like forever. It was probably more like 20 minutes before I was offered to turn myself. I was terrible at it, dying repeatedly, but I was also transfixed. This miraculous machine, to my eyes, projected a cartoon that you could control onto a TV. And there were even more of them than this. Ones that looked, according to my friend, even cooler, with soldiers and bombs and cars and all manner of things. And so it's sort of like, it is very much a memoir of his childhood growing up. And I think that it is the most interesting segment of this terrible book.
Oh, yeah.
But I just wanted to read that specific excerpt because he talks about how the thing is that Bob Chipman, for people who are not aware of his Twitter activity, is constantly calling for red states to be purged.
Yeah.
Because they voted for Trump, which is, a very ignorant stance considering, you're not even taking into account how gerrymandered a lot of those Republican states are.
Yeah.
No, Bob's Twitter account is 2/3 if you don't like Black Panther, you're a racist, and then 1/3 I think we should legalize the most dangerous game, but only in states that voted for Trump.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's his brand.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks, Bob. I know you're listening, Bob.
And so
cut it out.
The only reason why it's worth bringing up that he did terribly in school is because the guy is seemingly obsessed with intelligence, quote unquote, as a quantifiable thing, that he thinks that entire states should be subjected to eugenics to improve people's IQ and shit like that.
Yeah, he's had whole screeds about how being stupid is inherent. You're not going to fix these people, so fill in the blanks, wink wink.
Yeah, exactly. And he just tells us that he was good at nothing but drawing pictures and creative writing. And I'm reading some of his writing right now, and it's fucking terrible. So I don't know if maybe that's just relative. Holy shit!
All right, let's continue on. I have some thoughts on the nature of Bob's soul as well, but I would like to continue.
I just want to point out we're on page 29. He reminds us once again that SMB2 is Doki Doki Panic, and if you're playing along at home, if you're playing the Doki Doki Panic drinking game, take a shot every time Bob reminds you that Super Mario Brothers 2 is Doki Doki Panic. I'm already drunk.
Yeah, that's a good way of playing it. It's take a shot anytime he mentions Doki Doki Panic. Take a shot anytime he reminds you of the origin of the fucking Tanuki suit. Take a shot every time he tells you this is the beginning of the end.
Take a shot anytime he reminds you that he's got a framed copy of Nintendo Power Issue 1 over his bed.
Exactly.
Over his race car bed that he still sleeps in.
All right, so page 30. Beyond Borders.
Wow. Anarchist Bob.
However ubiquitous Mario and games in general were to my generation, quote unquote, were children, and children don't run the culture. So when some sliver of culture featured one of your game heroes as a show, movie, comic, etc., you almost had to snap it up, not knowing where the next fix, quote unquote, was going to come from. And this is him talking about Mario's Super Show, that combination live action cartoon, where it's just Captain Lou Albano and Danny Wells.
I remember.
Yep.
Zelda on Fridays.
He's talking about it like it's a fucking drug. And then later down on the page he says, I found a small, sturdy figurine of Mario holding up one of the vegetables from SMB2 in a tiny outlet while vacationing in New Hampshire, and wound up carrying him in my pocket for the rest of the way through grade school as a good luck totem, which I very much needed. Which is another one of those kind of funny, pathetic, and sad at all the same time moments.
I mean, okay, I'm not gonna begrudge him that because I had like a little Lego robot that I kept in my pocket too. So I must defend Bob in the like that's just little kids being little kids. Bob, if you're listening, I don't begrudge you this one thing.
Yeah, I don't begrudge Bob being a child, and I don't begrudge him writing about his childhood. It's stuff like how he, as an adult, is celebrating the homogenization of culture. He was just like, when you're a child and they stop doing other things and Mario is just everywhere and everything, with dog shit TV shows and shitty statuettes, that's great for a child. Like I had plenty of Mario shit. And a couple years ago, when I moved back to North Carolina, I went through all my old childhood shit, tons of Super Mario shit. It was all poorly made. It was capitalist junk. It was shit. So it's so funny to me to have Bob like worship this as like it's like a beautiful, well-made objects, the art.
What do you say your next note was? Kay, was it page 32?
31. I've got a couple of notes that in fact directly connect to Bob's childhood that we've been talking about. All right, so this is where we really start getting into the substance of the darkness, the dark heart of Bobbert, as I like to call it. So there's two sections on this page that really stand out to me. One, I'm just going to read it. I was quite emphatically a nerd in every sense of the words, save for academic excellence, but was still too weird and bookish to be accepted by most of my peers. Instead of dealing with this in some kind of mature fashion, I made one bad decision after another, including the classic asshole move of trying to endear myself to the cool kids by trying to join the name-calling and belittling of the other uncool kids. So, yeah, dick move, but it happens. But what he says
Seems
next...
like something he never grew out of, to be honest.
Totally. But what he says next will stick with me forever. He says, a part of me will probably hate myself for that until my dying day. Wow. And to me, this speaks to the sort of the dark undercurrent of a lot of this, where like this guy is really still like present in his own childhood. Like this isn't stupid shit that happened in the past when he was a kid. Who would care about that? This is like, no, I have self-loathing because of my child actions in a way that, again, Bob, if you're listening, you're not supposed to at your age. This should be a joke to you.
Forgive yourself.
See somebody about this, dude.
I called Kevin from 3rd grade a stick face and it haunts me.
I mean, considering that he grew up in Massachusetts as well, which I assume must have been, battle royale for a child growing up.
It was, can confirm.
What was the second part that you wanted to talk about? I'm assuming it's the fact that he went to a Catholic school.
Oh yeah, this guy has like hardcore Catholic school survivor's guilt. This guy's like the liberal Rod Dreher.
That explains so much. He needs to have that on his profile instead of a blue check mark, just like a blue Catholic cross to let me know he's got something wrong with him.
Yeah, this guy is so Catholic school. It's not even fucking funny. But the thing I wanted to highlight next was actually when he talks about, he says, they tried therapy, but I developed an unhelpful hobby of reading about child psychiatry techniques. Yeah, right.
Of all the things that happened, this happened the least.
Yeah, totally. And then either purposefully subverting them or smugly informing the therapist that I knew why he was doing what he was doing.
Oh my god, I had that same note. And it's just like, oh my god, Bob, I wish to God you had not tried to subvert your childhood therapist. They were just trying to help you, Bob.
I love that. Well, see, this is great because he remembers this as him being like an epic big brain and like styling on his therapist.
With facts and logic.
Defeating your child therapist in a battle of wits.
Doing Home Alone shit to your child therapist, like swinging paint cans down and hitting him in the face.
But like, what actually must have happened from the adult therapist's perspective is this little kid was just being like, no, I see what you're doing. You're trying to get me to talk about my feelings. This is a classic therapy maneuver. And just being like, yeah, kid, that's what we're doing here. Can you
try to help you? You got it.
Yeah.
You figured it out. From the adult perspective, it's just the child therapist being like, "I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Movie Bob. We cannot help your child. He is too annoying.
He's too smart. He's figured out all our techniques.
Yeah,
He's too epic.
He's too smart for
he truly is. He truly is too epic. He's too epic. I mean, he's too epic for me in his mind, and that's the only place where I cannot touch him.
Oh
This is a Rick and Morty tier child right here.
This is Movie Bob. I'm sorry, but your son's turned himself into a fucking pickle.
Oh, I developed an unhealthy hobby of turning myself into a pickle.
It's literally that fucking episode though. Like,
Holy
It's-
shit.
it's-
It is! Oh my god. Because he's trying to avoid going to counseling.
it's incredible how much he narrativizes like his childhood, where he's like, you know, he's not popular. He doesn't act like he was a Chad, you
Right.
know, but like he has these little things he needs to hang on to. It's like, no, I was really smart, really, and I was bad
Oh
in
my
school,
God.
but like I could talk circles around my therapist. All right, I knew. Like he has to have that little something to save like face. I guess I don't know what's happening.
He has it's never any like intelligence applied to anything that will get him anything or like produce any results. Nor is it something where he's just like, this is just who I am. I'm accepting myself, blah, blah, blah. It's him being like, I am a genius, and there is no evidence that this is the case. And I have to give him credit. That's fucking amazing.
I don't want to get too armchair psychologist with this guy, but like, you know, I've met people like this before that will tell you, like, you know, when I was 11, you know, I took an IQ test and I, you know, had 149 IQ, and, you know, they invited me to Mensa and I turned them down because I thought they were too stupid. And like, you know, I've known people like that, and number one, they're all liars, and number two, like, they're all narcissists. And I'm not trying to say that Bob is a liar and a narcissist. I'm just saying connect the dots, folks.
Yeah, but please don't try to be an armchair psychologist, because he will subvert your methods, as we've established.
He will meet you in the arena of facts and reason, and he will destroy you. There will be nothing left
in the Movie Bob dungeon, Mr. Chap.
There will be nothing left of you once he destroys you with his knowledge of child psychiatry techniques.
He'll turn you into a pickle.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. Oh my fucking god.
That was all I had for this page, so go off.
All right, so this is we're at 1 hour 17 minutes.
With
We're
30
on page
pages.
31.
Well, it seems like it's front loaded, this whole experience.
It very much
also.
is, and I think we only need one more part to finish this up. But I'm thinking, guys, how about we go ahead and take a break? This will be part one. We get some water, rest our voices a little bit. We'll come back. We start after page 31, and we try and finish this up. How's that sound?
Okay,
All right.
how long's the break?
Let's go like 10, 15 minutes, however long you guys need. 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say 10 minutes.
I'll get some water.
We'll be back here in 10 minutes with some water. All right.
Yeah.
See you guys. See everyone in part 2.
My Lisa stands full trip, and I'm rejuvenated and I'm remixed. I took planes, trains, and automobiles, and Peru got ill. In Brazil, I'm the Wizard of Oz while on tour, and got war in Singapore, and I'm eating sushi in Japan, but there ain't no place like Super Mario Land. There ain't no place like Super Mario Land. Check this out.